as you all know, mental health and wellness is very important to me as an individual, and it's also very important for all of us at MPAC. We had invited Helen Joanne originally about health and wellness, and now we're going to add the topic of racism. But I want to talk a little bit about my own journey with racism, because I did come forward a number of weeks ago and said that it's an uncomfortable topic. But I'm happy to share that after a lot of reading and a lot of talking to friends and family and colleagues in the EMG group, that I'm becoming much more comfortable talking about it. I still have a lot to listen and learn, and I want to thank all of you who have actually reached out to me directly as employees and shared your story, because it does help give me perspective, and it does help me understand the work that we need to do. So it does start with listening. That's what everyone says, listening and learning, and we'll continue to do that. But this is a clip with a video that you just released recently called How We Battled Racism.
Hi, I'm Hal Johnson from BodyBreak, and you normally see me giving fitness and health tips and being very positive, and I'm going to be positive now, but you think that BodyBreak was started because of fitness. Well, it wasn't. It was started to combat racism. That was the #1 reason that we started BodyBreak, Joanne and I. It happened back in April of 1988, and I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I went to TSN, and they were very open to see me. I went in and submitted my tape. They loved it. And I got hired by Jack Hutchison at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he was very enthusiastic about me joining TSN. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I got a phone call, and he said, sorry, but the higher-up said because I'm black and they already had Mark Jones, who's now with ESPN, has been there for many years, because they already have a black reporter, they don't want to have 2 black reporters. Jack was almost in tears, and he was very, very apologetic. And I was obviously very disappointed. The next month, I then subsequently met Joanne, which was my good fortune and my good luck. And we started talking about doing something in television together, something fitness or something, along those lines, because Joanne's background. But then on June 8th of 1988, I was doing a commercial. And that commercial was at Woodbine Racetrack. And there was 3 of us. There was myself, a white young lady, and a white guy, and we're rehearsing cheering. And then after about a half hour of that, just ready before we're going to shoot, the assistant director goes to the director and says something, and then the director tells the white guy and white girl to switch positions, so it's myself, the white guy, and the white girl's on the end. So at lunch, I then talked to the assistant director as we're in the buffet line, and I just tapped him on the shoulder and I asked him, why did you switch the 2 of us? And he said, well, he laughed. He said, well, the client really didn't want you next to the white girl because, God forbid, somebody might think you're with the white girl. And then he chuckled and laughed and then turned. And I didn't get mad. I just thought about it. And my dad had always told me, never get mad at something, because when you get mad, you can't find a solution to it. So that afternoon, after lunch, I took a piece of paper and I just wrote out kind of a storyboard, and I thought, how can I change things? How can I make that we can all live, work, and play together, and there won't be this attitude that white and black and Asian and persons with disabilities and male, female, we all can't be together. So I came up with this idea, and the idea is BodyBreak. And that was really the formulation of the idea. I then took it around after Joanne and I had produced this, which we had no production background at all, but we took this around to 42 different companies and were turned down by every one. But then I went to TSN again, and I saw the program director this time, a different gentleman, and he loved the show, and I was excited. And he said, yes, we'll take it. However, the problem is you're black, and the young lady, I remember him saying, the young lady is white. And so we don't think the Canadian public is ready for a black and white couple together. And so I thought about that, and he said, if you change the white, if you change the person, your part to be a white gentleman, we'll take it on the air. Well, I went home that afternoon and I looked at the phone and thought, who can I call? What can I do? Who can I call? What can I do? And after a half an hour of chanting that and looking at the phone, I yelled over to Joanne, who does the fitness and multiculturalism for Canada? And she said, Participaction. So I then picked up the phone, called Participaction, had a meeting in 2 days, and within a very, very short period of time, we had a contract for 6 episodes, and then we subsequently did 65 for participation. So it was without that TSN spawning me to think to go that route, without the racism that they displayed, without the racism of June 8th of 1988 by that client at Woodbine Racetrack. All those little things created BodyBreak, and we're happy to have hopefully given health and fitness tips to Canadians for 32 years, but also enlightened you that we all can live, work, and play together, regardless of our ability, disability, or skin color.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. I mean, I had no idea that that's how BodyBreak was actually formed. What was that moment like when you got that phone call and from TSN and said you can't be a reporter anymore?
Well, it was obviously very disappointing, but it was you kind of get used to it, for lack of a better, in terms of racism. Like if you got mad or went off the handle at everything that happened throughout your life, you'd be constantly getting angry with things and frustrated. And I think I always look at it then they win. And so that was kind of what I looked at. I thought and I've always thought and had the attitude, there's always a way. There's always a way that you can get to where you want to go. You just may have to take a different route. And I've had to take different routes throughout my life, as I'm sure everyone has, because I look at, say my journey and the things that I've gone through is that other people go through their own journey, whether it be persons with disabilities, whether it be females, whether it be, everyone has their own thing that they have to deal with. And this is just something else I had to deal with.
Wow. And what about for you, Joanne? I mean, the young lady, I'm sure you had your own feelings with all of this.
Well, you know what was interesting when I look back on the time, we had just started dating and hearing about these, situations that were coming up that just didn't make sense to me. They didn't seem fair. They just seemed wrong. And then I think about when I told my parents about Hal and they met him, and being surprised that they were kind of shocked that he was Black.
This I said to Joanne, again, I've had experience with it, dating, and Joanne had not. And I said, she said, well, I want to come over for dinner on the Sunday and meet. And again, Joanne's like 30 at the time, so it's not like she needed permission. But I said, do your parents know I'm Black? Oh, they're fine. I said, really? Like, really? He goes, oh, yeah. I go, okay, this will be fun.
Well, it was interesting because Hal and I had watched a television show, the Oprah show, and she had a dating game. She had a Black male and 3 Black females, and then she had a white female and 3 white males. And that struck us as odd, that like, why didn't she have it as a, even one being mixed couple? And I told my mom about that, and she goes, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. And it hit me full force that, oh, and I said, well, what do you think Hal and I are doing? And to this day, I don't even remember what she said. I was in a state of shock, but I think it did put me back on my heels, and I was quite aware that, yeah, not everyone's going to be accepting, even the people that are the closest to you. And I think for me, I question why am I so accepting? And I look back, and I was one of 6 kids in the household, and I was adopted, and I didn't look like anyone in my household. And I think because I never felt like I belonged, that I think it maybe gave me a little bit more compassion for others. I don't know, but it's definitely opened my eyes to situations that came up.
It is funny. My daughter, our daughter, Sierra, she's 21, and Joanne and her on Monday nights watch this ridiculous worst reality show on TV there is, The Bachelor or Bachelorette. I think it's absolutely terrible. I just listen.
It sparks
I'll just say,
conversation.
not between. I leave the room. I go out. But as I'm leaving, I say, black guys got no chance. And so it's really that. And my daughter, oh, he's really good looking. I said, he's got no chance. And so it's when you look at, and it's interesting about those shows is that they are kind of a reflection of our society in some respects. And I know if they had a show with all white participants, they would get backlash. But realistically, that they're trying to push or show that integration, but realistically, it hasn't happened to this point. And I just jokingly say to her as I leave, black guys got no chance.
It actually did happen
Oh,
on
did
The
it?
Bachelorette. There was
I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about it.
Well, look,
I'm
you
leaving.
need to
I'm
be
leaving.
informed.
You're going to find out after this virtual leader chat exactly what happened. I know Joanne's going to tell you. Well, it really struck me in that video where you said your father said to you, don't get angry, don't get angry. But, then you move forward to the Woodbine video. How did you feel at that moment? How did you not get angry?
Well, it's once again, it's like I don't understand in a sense why I don't get angry, but one of the things is that racism is like 1,000 cuts. You constantly get these little cuts, these little paper cuts. Some are deeper than others, and so you're constantly bleeding in a sense when that happens. So it was another paper cut this was their opinion. It was one person's opinion, thinking that, and that's how I looked at it. It's just one person that's making that call. One person's making that opinion, and that's what they want me to do. I'll do it. I'll stand in a different position, but I can't. And that's one of the things is that my dad told me this, is that you don't want to carry somebody else's baggage. So if this person's prejudiced or racist or whatever that person is, don't you carry their baggage. So if that's them, who cares? You're never going to see them again anyway. So why possess that and get angry with them and get all frustrated with them, because you just let it go. And that's really, I thought when I went back and I thought about it, I go, I think, and Joanne and I that month, as I mentioned in the video, that month had been talking about something in fitness and health, and we wanted to do something. And it was just that I look at that day as the spark that we threw on the kindling of Joanne and I thinking about doing something. That was the spark that said, here's what we can do, and here's what we can do together, and to change it. Because like I said, in talking about The Bachelor, is that most of my say the deepest or the most conflict that I've had is in dating. So interracial dating has had more conflicts than most other things. That when you say cross that threshold in society, it becomes rather delicate. And those are the instances that I've had more things. And I'm from a biracial, and I think about how difficult it has been for me and Joanne. It's nothing compared to my parents. I mean, my parents married in 1955. My mom's from Saskatoon and my dad's from Philadelphia. And I was born in the States at 6 months old. My mom said, we got to get out of here. We got to go to Canada, because she didn't want her son to be brought up in the US. And in many states in the US in 1955, it was illegal for them to travel together because they were married. So interracial marriage was illegal. So for us, it's nothing compared to what they went through.
Wow, well, what an amazing culmination of each of your experiences. And Joanne, growing up in a household where you said, you didn't feel like you belonged there, maybe that did give you different perspective. But I can only imagine, like, you want your parents to be accepting, so to actually hear that must have been very difficult for you.
It did. It obviously put a strain on the family dynamics, and but I've always been quite independent, and feeling that if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen. And what was really interesting at this time when Hal and I did meet, and we were starting to formulate the idea for BodyBreak, we were also seeing a surge in, fitness shows where you'd see the women, the really skinny women in tights and really low cut, leotards, and sometimes they were the sidekick for this one gentleman, Body by Jake on CNN, and he was the man. And it was at a time where women were almost being, in a way, laughed at and not taken seriously in a field of fitness and health that is very important and very important to women. So that kind of went in the mix as well when we were talking about it. So it was almost like this hurricane of issues that were coming to light, that were sparking ideas and what we could do with it. And also the fact that we were both no longer national athletes and being in situations where we were being taken care of. We now were in the workforce. And how do you, as an individual, monitor your exercise, make sure you eat well? How do you balance it all? And so it really all came together that night after Hal came back from that racetrack commercial. And he was scheduled to go down to San Diego, and I can see him still sitting in the chair, and I'm on the couch, and he's going, if we want this to get some legs, I don't think I should go. And I agreed with him. And the next thing he says, I think this is going to change your life dramatically. And it was like, whether I was just so naive or just like, yeah, we both had this inner, yeah, this could happen. We could make it happen. And or we had a really expensive home video.
Yeah.
This was personal congratulations, because you took, all of the societal aspects, you took things that some people, might have a hard time getting over, and you actually did good with it and move forward. And I think because you're both former athletes, you took it from that perspective. And I think your story is so powerful, Joanne, about, the certain persona of a woman who works out, and you took it more from, this is health, this is wellness, this is athletics. So you guys pulled it all together in one show that many of us were oblivious to some of the motives behind it.
Well, and that's why we're actually on our YouTube channel. We started 6 months ago, just starting to filter our old body breaks on, just some of the old body break. We thought let's do that on our YouTube channel, and so we started to do that. So every week we release 3 new body breaks of our 300 that we come out with, and we're looking at them now. And what we'd hope is people would look at them and look not as much for the fitness tips, but look for the other stuff that we were showing underneath that, showing the persons with disabilities. How many shows that we have? We just released one today on our YouTube channel that there's, I think, three or four people in the shot that are disabled. There's 4. There's one person over my shoulder doing sign language, and we're at a restaurant. It's just subtle. But the person who is hearing impaired will see that person, and they'll see that person that's them, and then they'll feel that they're part of society. And this particular episode we did in 1994, and that was our whole goal, was to show that we can, if you see it on television, if you see yourself there as a reflection, you'll go, I'm part of society. In 1966, I was 10 years old, and I was given a golf club and a bag of balls. And I lived in Toronto at Bathurst and Finch. And there's a high school called Northview High School across the street. And I would take that bag of balls and I would hit the golf balls between the goalposts for hours. I became pretty good at hitting this old 9-iron between the poles. And then that next year I'd never played golf. And the next year I watched the Masters on television. And the only thing is that all the caddies were black and all the players are white. So in my mind, as a little kid, I didn't think I was allowed to go on a golf course. I thought I had to be the caddy. And so when I was 12, there was a father-son hockey golf tournament. So our hockey team had a end of the year golf tournament. And as we're driving to the golf course, I asked my dad, I said, "Are we allowed to be on the course?" And he said, I'd ask, I said, "Well, I thought we weren't allowed to play." And that was the power of television as little kids. So that's where I look at and it's so honestly rewarding now that all of the messages that we've received from the video that has gone out is that so many people who are now, who grew up with BodyBreak, who are now 30, 35, 40 years old, who are of color or have disabilities, said, "Thank you for showing me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I saw you were the only Black person I saw on Canadian television regularly." And that if you can, so that's what the power of TV that I always thought it's so powerful. So how can we be a force for good in a very subtle way? That's what we tried to be, is subtle as far as everyone behind us and all the people that we participated with. It was never about to racism or sexism or any of the other elements of things. That's what we're trying to show.
Isn't that amazing? It's all just about acceptance and inclusivity. And if you don't project that, then people don't feel accepted. So kudos to you on that. And it goes back to your story of your dad of not getting angry. If you project that anger, right, that's not the reflection that you want back either. So very insightful at a very young age for all of you. So now I want to talk about.
What the major thing is that, are you looking to win the battle or the war? And so I'm always looking to win the war. And so I'm looking, and I've often said that I've become a chameleon. And a lot of people of color, we do have to become chameleons in order to go from in and out of different societies and different cultures. You become a chameleon, which is not a negative thing by any means. It's that you have to adapt to the differences and be able to do that. And so, walking into a room or walking into a boardroom with all white people, executives and so forth, and I've been in hundreds of boardrooms with very, very, very few people of color and very few people with disabilities. And early in the 90s, I'd say 98% of the boardrooms were male, and you're dealing with white males all the time. And so I hope that what comes from this is that in those boardrooms there are more diversity, people making decisions coming from different perspectives. And if you come from different perspectives, you're going to get a better company, a better organization, better ideas from different perspectives.
No, I'd say it's amazing. And this is my journey in my learning, and I'm doing a lot of reading and I'm following a lot of really great initiatives out there. And one of the people that I've connected with is Wes Hall, and he's put together a coalition of large Canadian corporations right across Canada. And what they're doing is trying to tackle it like a business issue, which is exactly what you said. If you don't have the diversity at the top, I mean, you're not going to get the diversity within. So really, and he equates it to the gender diversity. So years ago, they put gender diversity targets in to have women on boards, and they made it mandatory, not just over in Europe, but even in Canada, to make sure that you had 30 to 40% women on boards, and you put the target in, and lo and behold, it happens. So it's a journey. There's definitely a lot of work.
And I do think, one of the things that we just, we're selling our house or selling our home, and so we're going to be having some money, and so what we did is one of the companies that wants us to invest, I said to them, the investment counselor, I said, "How diverse are you?" And I asked, this was about a month ago, and he said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, who's in your C-suite? Who of your company is at executive levels that are not just white males?" Oh, we're very diverse. That's the whole thing. Show me. You want my money? Show me. And so basically on Friday, I have a call with the RBC head of diversity. And so I don't want any BS. I want you to show me, here's who is in those spots, and here's what we're trying to do as a company to be inclusive, and not just with people of color, but with persons with disabilities. It's very, very important for me. I've always, Joanne, we've been so blessed with BodyBreak to be able to meet so many persons with disabilities, and they have so many abilities that's left untapped. And so that's to me is extremely important as well.
I often will think back on a book I read that talked about it. Is basically that old cliche, or it's an old saying of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And it is so true that if you can find something in your life or an experience that you can relate to someone else, then you are able to make change. It takes time, but you're able to have that compassion and maybe a little bit more understanding, and you won't be so quick to judge. I know we did a BodyBreak episode where we did wheelchair basketball over at the Sunnybrook Rehab Center, and we got in wheelchairs. And one of the things that I came away with was when I was in the chair, I didn't see the chair. I was still Joanne. But I understand, on the other hand, how people looking at me saw the chair. But I think when you change your thinking, that person is still a person. They're not defined by the chair or any kind of disability, or then again, you can just step back and kind of understand how you're not afraid or intimidated by the situation. You're more to give them a one-to-one conversation that's real. There's not this elephant in the room or anything like that. And so I find those experiences of being able just to kind of think about it more personal, and how can you then relate to someone else.
Wow. So it was 32 years ago that Participation picked up BodyBreak, and I know you're looking back on videos now and saying you can really see the difference you made. But was there a point in the middle that you actually felt I am making breakthroughs in inclusivity and acceptance and really showing this diversity?
We never. What we did was we didn't focus on that and always keep that in the front of our mind. What we were trying to do is give helpful tips to people. That's the first thing, is that we had to give fitness and health information that hopefully was entertaining, hopefully got the message across of fitness and health, and then we added it in. We gave you the medicine without you even knowing it. And that's kind of the thing that we looked at, is that we never really focused on it. It was just something we were going to do. We were going to be inclusive. We're going to put, there was an agency, there was a casting agency that we would go to have extras and so forth, a disability casting agency. So we would always call them. So I need a Asian woman who does sign language, or I need so it was just, that would be just normal. That was what we did. So it was, to give you an idea, this is, and I know this can be hard to see in here. I'll try to, but in the back there, this is, I know the light's hitting it, but those little,
keep it there. Yep.
Yeah, those little icons that are right above my finger, right there, right now, I'm doing that right here. Those icons right across here. Those icons are of different people who are doing the activity. And so I wish I had a bigger one to show you this, but we went to, this is a BodyBreak product that we had. So we're the owners of BodyBreak, and this was a BodyBreak product that we're bringing in. So we were at an ad agency of all white males, and they were, it was like 4 of them, and they had come up with these concepts and idea for our packaging. And so they had these icons on our package, but they were all white people, and they were all able-bodied people, and they were all people that were under 45 years old. So I asked them at the meeting, I said, so are white people the only people going to buy this product? Is only white people who are able-bodied who are under 45? And they said, no. I said, well, why are they the only people on the package? And so I said, well, you guys go back and you guys come back with something that is more indicative of our show and more indicative of what Canada really is. Now, we can do that because we own the name. We're in control. Yeah, we're in control. And so when people are in control and challenge those other people out there, challenge ad agencies especially, and promotion agencies. I've rarely met anyone in those agencies that are of color. I've had meetings with many of them, PR agencies and so forth. And I wonder, how do you, without the diversity of people, how do you get a perspective of the different cultures that Canada is? So it was interesting when I challenged them, and I did it in I was a little bit miffed way, I guess you could say, that they would come to me with this approach, and they came back with certainly a different one, but they went back scratching their heads. So I think that's something that really people in power that are decision makers have to make the decisions and say, this is how things are going to change.
But I'll go back to the original question that Nicole asked.
I go off on tangents.
I was all in on the story. I don't even know what my original question was anymore.
And you did answer it in the sense that we just kind of continued on, not really thinking about it. But one thing that did all through the 32 years that did come up time and time again, and it goes back to what Hal said when he went into TSN, and they said, we love the show, but it's not going to work with a black male and a white female. Very shortly after BodyBreak started airing, our cameraman came to us and said, you know, when I say I'm doing, BodyBreak, they ask me, are you guys a couple? And the number one question over the 32 years, feels like 35, is that, are we married? And it's never been a fitness question or anything like that. It's always, are we married? And I think when I look back and I go, we never had to, it just evolved, like in terms of that we became accepted, and it was like we were just now part of the Canadian landscape, and that it was okay. We never got any negativity from it. It was nothing but positive. So when I think back on the TSN situation to as BodyBreak grew, it was the one thing that I think it was unspoken, but yet we definitely, it impacted us a great deal.
So you came out just recently and shared the TSN experience, and TSN just recently made a public apology. So, what do you think of that public apology 30 years later?
Well, my mom said, it's about time. And when they called me before they issued it, they called me and they said, we'd like to issue an apology. I said, I'm not a victim. I said, first of all, the company's been sold 4 times over since that occurred. So the only person that's still there is Michael Landsberg, and he had nothing to do with it anyway. So it's, but I understood they had to do it from a political Bell Media corporate rationale. Personally, it didn't mean anything to me. It meant them simply covering their behind as opposed to a sincere apology. I told the Natalie Cook, one of the vice presidents who called me, I said, if you really want to do something, show more diversity on your radio stations, as an example. Why are all your pretty much all your reporters and you're white on all of them? And I said, why on a radio, TSN radio, it goes across the country and the affiliates all across the country, are there any people that are in wheelchairs? Because you're doing radio. You're sitting down. There's no barrier to you being able to do that job. Are there people of color on those stations? Because I asked her, I said, a black reporter asking a black athlete, which in Toronto, as an example, 50% of the athletes whether it be football or baseball or are going to be, or basketball, are going to be black. A lot of the athletes are black. Having a black reporter asking a black athlete a question may give you a different answer if a white reporter asked that same question to that black athlete. You may get a different answer. It may be a little bit more in-depth answer. Why don't you have more, be more reflective of that? And I said, that would be much more valuable to me than any corporate apology.
Wow. Well, that's really powerful. So in the 32 years, I mean, you've had so many experiences, both of you. Do you think that we've made progress in the 32 years?
Oh, I think, yeah, there's more progress now than ever before. There's more awareness. I think that white people in Canada are far more aware now today than ever before. I would say that most people thought it wasn't there. As we as Canadians, I'm very, very proud to be Canadian. Very, very proud of our country. I gave up my U.S. citizenship years ago. I'm so proud to be Canadian. I love it here, and I don't want to be anyplace else. But I think what has happened is we've looked to our brethren in the States and go. We always look to them and go, well, we're not them. we don't want to. We're not like them. The U.S. was built on slavery. The 400 years it was built on slavery. Canada wasn't. We don't have that history, that rooted of separation. We didn't have a civil war, which was all about slavery, in essence. But we have things that become normal. You think they're normalized things, and it's like that's what they call now systemic racism. And so there are barriers, there are things that we can break down to make us a better country, and to be more inclusive. I know it's funny when Trudeau a few years ago brought in 25,000 Syrian refugees. I felt so proud of being Canadian. You know, it was, and the U.S. was, you know, trying to keep everybody out. I was thinking, that's what we're about. It's being a proud Canadian and welcoming people. And so I think we've gone a long way. We still have the ways to go, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's as I said, I'm on my learning phase, but my perspective 2 months ago to today has drastically shifted. So it's there's still a lot of work to do. But
can I ask you a question? How has it shifted?
Well, I showed this chart on one of these virtual leader chats a couple of weeks ago that an employee shared with me, and it was this graph of the journey from being non-racist to anti-racist. And in the first phase, you would identify yourself as being non-racist. You know, you have lots of Black friends or people of color. You don't see race, but you also don't get involved. And so by not getting involved, you're actually complicit in a lot of ways. Then you move into this learning phase. And this is the phase I'm in now, where you're really trying to understand the history, and you know, and there's so much new terminology now out there, being an ally, privilege. There's so many different words out there. So just trying to understand all of that and understanding perspectives that I might not have heard before. And our own staff are helping me because they're sharing their stories. And then your final phase is you move to anti-racist, which means you do something about it. You're not silent. You don't stand for it. You stand against it quite vocally, and you put things in place to create that inclusivity. So that's where I would say, you know, 2 months ago, I was probably on this side of the spectrum, and now I'm on my journey.
Yeah, and that I would say, and comparing us to the U.S., is that they have a fourth area, and that's just over here racist. And they're not moving. I mean, they have that because it's so entrenched in the culture, like in the United States. And one of the things, as an example, I lived in the States for 10 years, going to school and so forth. And so I have a really good understanding and perspective, plus going to University of Colorado and then playing against Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, all of Arizona, all those states, playing ball there, is that when I'm in the US, I feel hunted. And when I'm in Canada, I don't feel that way. When Joanne and I went to Tucson in October, when we drive down through Indiana and Oklahoma, down through Texas, New Mexico, when we stopped at a hotel, she would go in and get the key, and then I would come in afterwards, and that because we wanted to make sure that we would get the hotel room. We wouldn't be driving at night because I don't want to be stopped on the highway in Texas by state police driving while black, which I've been stopped numerous times, because you never know as a black person what's going to happen. I mean, you could, and you immediately put your hands on the steering wheel or put your hands on there immediately and don't move. And so those are things that you know, that a white person doesn't have to think about or deal with. One thing I would say to you when from the progression that you took is that one thing I've heard from so many of my white friends is that they say, "Oh, you know, I don't see color." They say, "Okay, are you blind?" or because I do, like, and because, but, oh, I just, and that's a way of saying, in their way, I'm not racist, but they see color. I mean, everyone sees what their visual sees, and they make a thought in their mind. Oh, this person is whatever, and they make that not a judgment, but in essence, but they assess who that person is. And so I say, if you were to describe me, someone's going to meet me on the corner, and would you describe me with a color? Oh, yes. Well, then you do see color. So it's like, what are you saying? So I think that would be one tip I would say to white people. Don't say that. Don't say I don't see color. That's kind of like, okay.
Well, you know what's interesting with, you know, we're at a time where people are talking about a change and what can I do, and a lot of it is change can be made through, you know, government, corporations, the workplace, but each and every one of us can do little things. Just you know, just a simple act of if you know, you hear someone saying a derogatory remark, stand up and say that that's wrong. You know, I think as parents, we have a huge impact on the attitude of our children. You know, children come out, you know, or start growing up, they are very oblivious to everything. They don't have sort of attitudes that one would think are racist, but they learn behavior, and everything that we're hearing is that we need to change behavior, whether it's the gay and trans group, towards females, towards blacks, it's people of color. You know, it's our culture has changed so much. You know, when you know, being 62, I'm starting to hear kind of my parents talking or older people talking, but you do look back and you can really assess how far we've come, as well as that culture, diversity, everything has just kind of gone crazy in Canada, and it's opened up all these new opportunities, but also has created some stagnation where people aren't changing based on the times.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I would say is that this is a little story about my grandmother, my Irish grandmother, and she gave me a poem, and this is the same Irish grandmother. She came to me and said, "You're going to have the hardest time in your life." And I'm like 8 years old. I don't know what she's talking about. She goes, "You're going to have such a hard time." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she gave me this poem, and this is the same grandmother that she loved me, but she had this embarrassment of me. So when she was 88 years old, living in a nursing home in Calgary, my mom would go see her every week. And every week she would go see her, the picture of myself and my sister would be in the top of the bureau, and all the other grandchildren would be on top. We'd be in the bureau. And so every week my mom would take our picture out, set it back on the bureau, and with all the other grandkids, every week it was back in. So even though she had Alzheimer's and she didn't remember my mom's name, she knew that our faces didn't fit with what was right up there. That's how deep it was with her. But she gave me this poem when I was 8, and it's called "The One Who Thinks He Can." It's by Walter Winkle, and it really is all the things you ask. You know, why didn't you get mad? How did you keep going? Those kind of things. I would always have this poem on my desk when I was a kid. I had it pinned to the wall. My desk at university. I have it on my desk right now, and it goes, if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you're not, you don't. If you like to win, but think you can't, it's almost a cinch that you won't. If you think you lose, you're lost. For out in the world you'll find success begins with one's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can win that prize. Because you see, life's battles don't always go to the strongest or fastest one, but sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who thinks they can. So that was given to me, and it was something that I read like all the time. Whenever I'd get knocked down, I'd read the poem and I'd get back up.
That's amazing. I'm going to put that poem in my phone. Where there's a will, there's a way. I love that. I want to segue for a couple minutes on BodyBreak and health and wellness and keep fit and have fun. And, you know, obviously you're very passionate about, and it's not just fitness. I mean, I watched a lot of BodyBreaks, and it was about healthy eating and so on. You know, right now with this pandemic, to think that that's something that's more important than ever, that we're keeping fit and having fun.
Oh, very much so. And I think the mental health aspect of keeping fit is more important than ever before. You know, people who have never had mental health issues are maybe struggling with, you know, their own self-esteem. And I think to some extent, this uncertainty makes us feel insecure, and we need to find ways to you know, feel good about ourselves and to look forward to things. So mental health, your physical health is all combined, and you can do it just like Hal and I this morning got up at 7:30 and we went out for our hour-and-a-half bike ride, and wow, it just makes you feel not only that you've done something, but it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, and one of the things with the COVID is that the doctors talk about the immune system, and what I haven't heard a lot of discussion about is, you know, you've heard about all the tragic deaths that have occurred and people having compromised immune system. But how do you, and this is where we think, how do you strengthen your immune system? How do you get that immune system strong and healthy? And so it's about proper eating. It's about eating the right foods, right? And taking supplementation that's appropriate that you need. So it's like, for example, in China, they, again, 40%, in China, they have the highest rate of smoking in males in the world, highest percentage. 40% of men in China smoke. The people who died from COVID were much more male oriented than female. And there's a correlation between smoking and COVID, because it's a lung respiratory disease, and having an immune system that's compromised. When you're obese, your immune system is compromised. So those are the kind of when they say underlying factors of that, is obesity is one of the major factors. And again, it's not publicized because we don't want to blame the victim who gets this, but understand, in order to strengthen, the healthier, the stronger you are, the less obese you are, the better you eat, you're going to be able to fight against this disease.
Absolutely. No, and that's one thing we've tried right from the beginning of the year was to really focus on mental health and physical health. And, you know, health is health. It includes mental health as well as physical health, and eating healthy. And I think that we all struggled when COVID hit because, you know, you're too close to your kitchens when you're working from home. But now we can at least all get outside a little bit more.
Well, and that's what, like, bike stores have run out of bikes.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And across the street in our house in the city, the people, we're across maybe 20 years. We've never seen them go out for a walk. Every night now, at 7 o'clock at night, they go out with their university son and they go up for a walk every night at 7 o'clock, which is great since this has happened.
And, you know, it comes down to that, you know, fitness, health, wellness doesn't have to cost an awful lot of money. It's about doing the simple things. You know, fast food restaurants. I think a lot of people have saved quite a bit of money not going to restaurants, and in turn, their
That's okay.
the amount of caloric intake is also reduced. So it really is, your grocery bill, look for the essentials. That's what's important. And yes, you have your treats here and there, but it doesn't have to cost a lot. And the same with, exercise. You get out for a walk, and all you need really is a good pair of running shoes. They don't have to be super high end or by any means, but it doesn't have to cost a lot, or you don't, again, it comes back to being a parent and being a good role model. And also, if you're single and your friends, it's a great way to say, hey, let's go out for a run. My running buddy and I, one of us is on the sidewalk and the other one's on the bike lane, and we go for a run. We still get to chat and
keep your distance, and you both get out.
Yeah.
Well, you and I were talking just before that, and you were mentioning your neighbor that now goes out walking. There's a lot of habits that I think we've built that are good and positive that we don't want to go backwards, right? So people who weren't walking and weren't healthy before, hopefully they'll keep that going. You're welcome to bring your dog on camera. We welcome dogs. One big happy family here with the Unpacked family.
We have two of them, and they're both wet. They're both wet from being outside swimming.
We have a little poll trivia question. You have not just been on BodyBreak. There's another famous show that you've been on. So we're going to get our staff to try and guess, and then we're going to ask you a question about that. So maybe Carrot, you can run the little poll question. So Hal and Joanne were also on another famous TV show. So the first answer would be Property Brothers. The second answer would be Amazing Race Canada. The third would be your judges on Dragon's Den. Or the fourth is you were on Battle of the Blades. We'll just give a couple of seconds to see what our staff guess. Okay, maybe we can see the results. Our staff are pretty smart, so I have the, oh my goodness, wow.
I have to tell you, I have really started to enjoy over the last 5 years or so, just having a little bit more time renovating. And I can tile, I can paint, I can fix stuff. So Property Brothers would be a good show for me.
I wish
Maybe that's your next one.
I wish it was Dragons Den. That means we'd be rich. So.
But it says you were judges on Dragon's Den.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
You'd have to be the investor.
Yeah, that's
great.
So the question we all want to know, would you do it again? Amazing Race?
Not sure. It was an incredible experience, and I would recommend for anyone who'd ever think about it to apply once they do it again. Yes. And so, in fact, what we're going to be doing on our YouTube channel as well is putting that out. Is we're going to be doing a behind the scenes of what things that you didn't see on the Amazing Race. What we did, even things like when you go in to do the pre-interviews. They take you down to the Royal York Hotel and you go in. Well, before we went in for a pre-interview selection process, I videoed Joanne about how exciting this is, and then we took interview about what it was like in there. So we've got those clips of us, the questions that they ask you. So for any couple who this would be a great thing for a couple to do, it would kind of like be kind of marriage counseling, because you think if you can get through that together, that's right. Life's a piece of cake.
And I think when we finished the race, there definitely was this surge. I know for me, I wanted to get back on because I felt like I still left stuff on the table. But as time has gone on, thoughts creep through that, your first experience being on the race, how can you duplicate that, the highs and the lows, and it's not going to be the same the second time around. And do you want to go through that? Can maybe it's good just to leave it alone and feel good about what you did, But then there's the
Yeah.
competitive side of me that wants to do something like
Yeah, we should have won. We should have.
Yeah.
We should. We
that
hadn't been
U-turn.
that U-turn.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. That was such a fabulous conversation. I feel like we could have gone on for hours. And I want to thank you for all the work that you did 32 years ago to today. And I'm sure that we will speak again. So thank you so much for joining our Impact family.
Thank you, Nicole. And as we always say, until next time, keep fit and have fun.